It is too warm. December 1867. Scarcely a month had passed since Abura no Koji. Saito and Heisuke had returned, but the Shinsengumi was hardly back to normal. A dark, tense atmosphere pervaded the compound. Many men had lost their lives in Kazuma's attacks. Even more had been injured during the attack of Abura no Koji. Among them was Heisuke. Several of the rank-and-file soldiers had seen him mortally wounded. He had looked as if he would not survive. For that reason, Heisuke was declared officially dead and made a member of the Fury Corps. Saito-san had been wounded, but many among the common soldiers began to call him a coward. To them, he had left the Shinsengumi to join Ito-san, then betrayed his new master when he sensed a change in fortunes. I saw no reason why he shouldn't set them straight and say that he had never truly left the Shinsengumi, but he claimed he would rather stay silent than tarnish the honor of the commander and the chief who had ordered his actions. As such, it was decided that Saito-san would leave the compound until tempers had been allowed to cool. He was sent to stay at Tenma in order to protect Kyaru Miura, an official of the Kishu domain. I headed towards the quarters for the Fury Corps. Most of the Furies had been killed during Kazuma's attack, which left their quarters largely empty. The Fury Corps was frightening enough, but the thought of them disappearing was even more so. After all, I knew some of the corps members well.
Yukimura-kun, ここに何かご用ですか?
Oh, Sanan-san.
見ての通り、羅刹隊は壊滅状態。わざわざ来ても何もありませんよ。
His words were understandably tight and cold. I was hoping to talk to Heisuke. Is he around?
なるほど。君も物好きですね。
What is that supposed to mean, Sanan? What is my interesting taste? Are you mad that I'm not here to talk to you? I'm sorry for disturbing you at a time like this.
まあ、今ここで話ができるのは私と東堂くんくらいですからね。私と話がしたくて来たというよりは、よほどまともでしょうね。
So you are jealous.
いいでしょう。呼んできてあげますから、ここで待っていなさい。
Hi. Thank you. He left me there for only a few moments before he returned with Heisuke, but those moments felt like an eternity. I felt as if the blood of the Furies who died that night hung in the air around me like a thick, wet cloud. So much blood was shed, even Heisuke's.
Yo.
I'm sorry for bothering you.
別にいいけどさ。ここに何しに来たんだ?
I only come to see him, but now that I had, I didn't know what to say. He seemed to be feeling much the same. We stood there awkwardly for a while, like two strangers thrown into conversation for the first time. No. I just wanted to see how you were feeling.
まあ、そうだな。あの時の怪我は全部治ってるみてえだ。
Oh, that's... I caught myself before I said good. Heisuke's injury Abura no Koji was not something he should have survived. I didn't need any medical knowledge to know that it was a mortal wound. The only reason he was speaking to me now was because the water of life had done its work. He was healed, yes, but he had become a fury. Good hardly seemed like the right thing to say. What should I say to him? I want to be with you. Can I stay here with you for a while? No, not just here. And not just for a while. I want to stay with you as long as I can. I'll leave if I ever get in your way. Can I?
No.
He blinked. My sudden boldness had clearly caught him off guard. What should I do? I wonder if he thinks that's weird of me to throw this at him like I did. I have to say something. What's so funny?
いや、悪い悪い。そうじゃねえんだ。
Well, what is it?
お前の気持ちが嬉しくてさ。俺もう自分が生きてるのか死んでるのかもよくわからねえから。でも生きてるのか死んでるのかはわからなくても自分が変わっちまったってことだけはよくわかるんだ。
Heisuke.
怪我はすっかり治ったし、これまでと変わらずに動いていられるんだけど、なんかお先真っ暗な気もするし、一人でいるとすげえ不安で、いろんなことが頭の中をぐるぐるしてたんだけど。
After Heisuke said that, he looked at me in a bashful way.
お前と話したら少し元気出た。
Really?
ああ、お前ってすげえな。ありがとよ。
That's not really anything you should be thanking me for. Besides, you used to always cheer me up too.
そうか。今俺がもらった分の方が多いんじゃねえかな。
He laughed again. His face wasn't the face of a dead man. It was his. The Heisuke I remembered. Although I couldn't affirm the existence of furies in the water of life, I was really happy to see him smile. Then, can I stay with you?
ああ、もちろん。
Good. Oh, and not just for a little while. As long as I don't get in the way, right?
あのな、そもそも俺がお前を迷惑だなんて思うわけねえだろ。お前がそうしてって思う限りそばにいてくれよ。
Really?
ああ、きっとそれで元気になるのは俺の方だし。
Thanks. What a relief. Even if he's a fury, Heisuke is still the same Heisuke I knew. If I could help him, even just a little bit, then I'd be happy. Okay. The night of the battle of Aburanokoji was a turning point for the Shinsengumi. For the men who didn't know the details, it was simply a battle against their former comrades, the guardians of the Imperial Tomb. Those better informed knew the situation with the Satsuma and Choshu domains had changed, and Ryoma Sakamoto's hit was part of a big plan. Only the heads of the Shinsengumi knew the whole story, the activities of the demons, and Heisuke's transformation into a fury. They were also the only ones who knew that Okita's illness had gotten worse. Such an important battle had stirred up the atmosphere in the compound, and for several days, there were excited men everywhere, shouting and talking. Moments of silence were quite rare. I felt I would only get in the way if I was wandering around the grounds, so I did my best to stay in my room by myself. Are we getting the scene that I think we're gonna get right now?
部屋にいてくれましたか。
Yes! I don't want this scene. I'll stay here, right? Yep, I'll stay here. Oh, I just saw something very interesting. Oh. Oh. Oh, okay. December 1867. Actually, you know, I'm gonna take a quick break. Anyway, December 1867. The imperial restoration shook Kyoto to its core. The shogun and his government suddenly found the ground giving way beneath their feet. The domains that had long opposed the shogunate began to gather in Kyoto, with the Satsuma at their head. Yoshinobu Tokugawa fled to Osaka and was soon followed by more and more of his ministers and associates. The shogunate had begun to withdraw from Kyoto, and the Shinsengumi followed. Our standing orders were to provide protection for Yoshinobu, who had taken up residence in Osaka Castle. For that reason, among others, our headquarters was moved to the Fushimi Magistrate's office, situated along a route between Kyoto and Osaka. Nighttime. The mill looked somehow different from the magistrate's office than it had from elsewhere in the city. What's going to happen to us? There was no one there to answer me. The rebel soldiers were growing more restless by the minute, it seemed. It seemed that war was inevitable now, and the only question was when. If one listened very carefully, it almost seemed as if one could hear the footsteps of war coming closer. Closer. There was no mistaking it. Those were footsteps. I turned around in panic, glancing nervously in the direction I'd heard the steps coming from.
Yo, ohayo. って何鳩が豆鉄砲食らったみたいな顔してんだよ。
Because you just scared the fuck out of us, Heisuke. I struggled desperately to regain my composure. Oh, no, it's nothing. Ohio? Did you just get up?
ああ、ついさっき。まあ確かにおはようって時間でもないか。不思議だよな。日の出前に眠くなって日が暮れると目が覚めるなんてさ。
His smile turned bitter for just the barest fraction of a second. Heisuke had been a fury for 2 months, which meant he'd been sleeping during the day. I hadn't been able to see him as much, and I was beginning to get a little lonely. How are you feeling? Any changes?
大丈夫すぎて拍子抜けしてるぐらいだって。俺の体だけじゃなく周りも変わんねえよ。土方さんは相変わらず厳しいし。新八さんや佐野さんなんてバカは死んでも治んねえって本当だなとか俺を見て笑うしな。
I was pretty sure that was just their way of trying to tell him that he was still the same Heisuke he'd been before. When it looked like you might die, Harada and Nagakura looked really worried. I had been too, of course, but that was neither here nor there. Besides, there are a lot of people who think you are dead, and they're really sad about it.
8番組の連中とかか。
Oh, yeah, his unit, his division!
あいつらには教えてやりてえよな。実は生きてるってさ。
That has to hurt. Officially, Heisuke was dead, and his funeral had been well attended. He was clearly missed. I found myself wondering, if I were to die, would my father mourn me?
どうしたんだよ。暗い顔しちまって。
No. Oh. I'm sure your family is worried too.
俺の家族
He frowned suddenly and looked at me for a moment before turning away. Now we get to Heisuke's backstory. I think. Had I said something I shouldn't have? I wonder if I had offended him in any way.
なあ、
What's the matter?
お前最初に今日に来た時、家族をコードさんを探してるって言ってただろ。
What about it?
あの時さ、実は俺ちょっとだけお前のことが羨ましかったんだ。
Just a little jealous.
俺親を探せねえ立場だから。
Not allowed? Do you mean that you can't find them?
なあ、お前になら話してもいいかな。伊勢に津藩って藩があるの知ってるか？
I think I've heard of it.
まあ江戸からは随分離れてるしな。その津藩はさ、東道藩とも呼ばれてるんだ。
Wait, so it's a domain with the same last name as you?
そう。俺は父親の顔も知らねえんだけど、その藩とは関わりがあるみてえでさ。多分俺東道藩のお偉いさんの隠し子とかだったんじゃねえかな。
Heisuke called him the big guy. I mean, if it's the name that's being used for the whole domain, maybe he's the feudal lord then?
でさ、その父親らしい人が毎月暮らしに困らねえだけの金を送ってくれてたんだよ。絶対に自分を探さないことって条件付きでさ。
And in reality, it's always the real Heisuke Todo. This was just a rumor that he was an illegitimate child of Todo. But it might be true. There's a debate about it, to be fair. But I like how they handle it here. Don't go looking for him. I thought to myself how I would have felt if I were in his shoes. To have a father who sent me money without even knowing what kind of person he is. Or not to be allowed to speak with him, let alone take time out of my life to see him. I couldn't imagine how I'd deal with it, yet Heisuke showed no signs of remorse or anger. He laughed, but it was flat and without humor. He wore a dejected expression before he spoke.
俺多分間違いで生まれた子ってことだよな。だからさ、俺が死んでも悲しむ親なんていねえんだ。
Oh.
向こうにとっちゃむしろ死んでてくれた方が都合いいんじゃねえかな。
Heisuke. I felt I had to say something. You know that's not true. You know that's not true. I didn't know what kind of people Heisuke's parents might have been. They could have been good or bad or indifferent. But right then, I felt they couldn't be completely unconcerned with whether or not he was dead. After all, they were his parents. Maybe the circumstances meant they couldn't be with you as they'd like. But I'm sure your parents loved you very much.
お前な、今の話を聞いただけでどうしてそう言い切れるんだよ。慰めなら別にいらねえってもう慣れてるし。
You may not be able to see your father, but what about your mother?
母上とは江戸の家を飛び出したきり会ってねえよ。
You ran away?
俺の父親がどんな人だったのかさえ教えてくれなかったし、俺もその頃はガキだったから 母上に当たり散らしたりしちまってたしさ。
Back in Edo, I used to help my father out by helping to deliver babies at the local clinic. So I'm a little familiar with how it all works, but those women risk their lives to give birth. There are many mothers who sometimes even die after successfully giving birth. So when your mother gave birth to you, Heisuke, she walked in preparing for everything, even death. And besides, for your father, you're still getting money every month, aren't you? That means whoever's sending it at least wants you to have enough money to be happy, right? If they didn't care whether or not you lived or died, then why did you get sent money in the first place? Then why send you money in the first place? The theory I'd formed was that his parents wanted him but couldn't. They knew money was a poor substitute for a family. It seemed reasonable. He was quiet for a few minutes, but at last his face burst out in a grin and he laughed.
お前幸せなやつってよく言われね。
No, I mean, I don't think. What's so funny?
悪い悪い。
Goodness.
でもそっか。それなら俺が死んだって知らせを聞いて向こうでも悲しんでくれるやつがいたのかな。
Then maybe someday you can tell them the truth. That you're alive. I'm sure they'd like that. Is this our plot? Is this one of our plots for part 2? Please let it be.
そうだな。
I really like this to be a plot. Maybe my words got through to him. Heisuke's mood had seemed a little brighter, even if it were just a tad, than he'd looked earlier.